Well, welcome back to everybody here in Vegas at the AMC Town Square Theater, and hello to all of our friends watching on Yahoo and live streaming around the world. Welcome to this very special Lone Ranger fan event. Give it up, guys. Before we get into the Q&A with our very special guests, just a heads up that if you have a burning question about the film or for the cast, be sure to use the hashtag Lone Ranger, and you could have your question asked right here. So we're going to try and get to everybody's questions. So let's just start this thing right now. It's my privilege to welcome the director, Gore Verbinski, the stars, Johnny Depp and Armie Hammer, and the producer, Mr. Jerry Bruckheimer.
How you doing?
Hello again. Nice to see you.
Sit on your name. You sit on your name. That's what you do.
That feels good.
Well, the Lone Ranger. I remember my dad introducing me to the Lone Ranger when I was very little and being enamored with the world. Talk to me about your first impressions of the Lone Ranger. When do you first remember being introduced to the world?
Is that to me?
Sure. You directed the movie. You got to start with the director.
It looked like it. Yeah, he looked right at me. through me. He looked through me. Wow. I don't know. I felt like, kind of have a distant memory. I grew up in the 70s, so it was like Sergio Leone and Sam Peckinpah, and not so much the Lone Ranger, but I just always responded to that relationship between Tonto and the Lone Ranger, and I thought there was a great opportunity to explore that, and with Johnny and Armie to try something different. So, I mean, it's all there, the silver bullet and the white horse and the hat and the mask and the code, but I think we're just doing something different. We're telling it from Tonto's perspective. He's kind of our way into this story, and you've all heard the story, but you've never heard it from the guy who was there. And he just is somebody that maybe was there, but you don't entirely trust.
Speaking of Tonto, we have a question for Johnny Depp. This is coming from Linda Fortman out in New Haven, Indiana. Johnny, how did you prepare for your interesting portrayal of Tonto, and did you research Native American culture?
Well, preparing for the role of Tonto, it was just really trying to find a way in that was, or into the character that was, different, and not to take anything away from what the great Jay Silverheels did, but I don't know. I was always, as a kid, when I watched the show, I just didn't understand why Tonto was the sidekick. I always, felt a little unnerved about it. So, as far as research in terms of the Native Americans and the Comanche and the Navajo and those people out, the human beings in that area and all nations, really, the goal really was to try to, in my own small way, right the many wrongs that have been done to those people, and to show Tonto with not only as a proud warrior, but also as a man outside. Just a bit outside.
We have a question coming from Deborah out in Racine, Wisconsin. This is for Armie Hammer. Did you have a chance to learn how to ride a horse? Were you already familiar with horseback riding?
Yeah, I was familiar with horseback riding. I'd never ridden a horse through a moving train or on top of a bank before, so those were both new. There was a fun process called Cowboy Boot Camp, where they just basically took all the actors and stuck us on a working horse ranch out in New Mexico and basically said, we're going to beat the city out of you. And they did. They tried anyway.
This is from James Schaffer out in Parker, Colorado, and I think it's really appropriate for the entire group up here on stage. What was the most fun location you guys had to shoot the movie in?
Oh, God. We were shot in 5 states, and it rained and it snowed, and it was 125 degrees, and we still are getting dust out of our ears. I think it was the hardest film I've ever been on. It was absolutely nuts. We had the train never worked. Every time you show up, they're pulling some gears out of the bottom. I mean, everything. It was just It was insane.
Monument Valley was pretty good, though.
Monument Valley. I like Creed. Creed, Colorado was
Colorado,
was a
yeah.
very cool place.
Beautiful.
Jerry, you've worked on huge movies over the years. How does this one stack up against some of the other big blockbusters? When you were on set, did you realize, wow, this is just as big as, or even bigger than anything I've done?
Yeah, it's an enormous movie. As you can see from the footage that we looked at in the trailer, it's gigantic. We built trains and we trekked those trains over 5 states and had an enormous cast of actors and a huge production behind the camera. So it was one of the fun adventures that took from February to October to finish. So it was a long journey, but a wonderful journey.
We have some questions coming in from our friends at Yahoo. Liz Swart wants to know from Army, what did it feel like to put on the mask for the first time? That's an iconic symbol.
Without the zipper.
Well, the ball gag.
Yeah. It's Disney.
I'm sorry, it just comes out.
It's not live. They'll take that.
Yeah.
There's
There was
a delay.
Yeah. There was a lot of mask things went on. We did a lot of mask fittings. It never really felt surreal putting the mask on for the first time. It was just more of like a bunch of us standing in a room with 100 different kinds of masks and just try this one on. Okay, no, try this one on. No, try this one on. Then try this one. And there was that one that just thunk, just kind of like went right on and just hit the bridge of my nose, right, and just everything perfectly. It was like, guys, I think we got it. So, I mean, I wish it was a more iconic moment. Instead, it was just like this one fits.
Let's go with it.
Number 32.
But he looked great in it.
Nobody can tell who he is when he puts it on. It's
Yeah.
like a force field.
Piper from St. Charles, Missouri wants to know, Johnny, you've created so many great characters in your career, and you talked a little bit about the inspiration for Tonto, but talk to me just about the last couple of movies, and even the movies you worked on with Gore. Kind of why is you guys maybe have a good thing going? This is about the 4th time you've worked together now.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
5, yeah.
Yeah, number 5.
Well, I mean, in terms of working with Gore, it's always a pleasure because it's always an adventure, not necessarily just in a physical sense, but an adventure into the character, and there's a shorthand, you know, that and a great sort of understanding and a great.
You said great.
I did say great. I think I said it a couple of times. Stuttered. There was great grandfather. No. No.
Great Gatsby.
No, that's another film. I wasn't in that. I don't think.
Great Escape.
Great Escape. That was in that. No, there's just a wonderful kind of respect for absurdity and irreverence, which is the only way to go through life, I believe. And so there's just a kind of a thing that happens between, when we work together that we start feeding each other.
One of those previous projects, of course, was Rango, and even though it's an animated film, a lot of people love Rango. I'm a big Rango fan. Did that experience help you with The Lone Ranger, even though it was animated, and the fact that it was set in the Wild West?
You mean the fact that I had to become a lizard?
You said it, not me.
I'm still reptilian.
Yes. I think that's just a different character, completely different character that's locked away. And when he passes on and they open up that brain, there's going to be scissor. I don't know if the scissor hands is on the lizard or if Ed Wood is going to be the.
That's the scary thing, is that they're all in there still.
We got some questions from our international friends around the world. Let's go down to Australia. Johnny, what was the most challenging part of shooting this film in particular? We've heard a little bit about the locations and obviously seen some of the stunts. What was the toughest part for you?
Most difficult thing was, staying alive when you're on a horse that's moving at high speed, and you realize that you're under it suddenly. So staying alive on the horse was really my biggest challenge.
Jerry, as somebody behind the scenes, talk to me about the challenges of a producer on a project like this. What was the first thing that kind of jumped out at you as, all right, we got to make sure we get this right, or this is going to be something that we're going to have to overcome?
Well, it's an enormous undertaking when you're shooting in 5 different states and you're moving an enormous company. behind the cameras, and we had horses and wranglers and horse trainers and just an enormous, enormous production. So I guess just moving that whole caravan from state to state was quite an ordeal for our crew and cast.
We got a question from our friends in Latin America who want to know, Army, which characteristic from the Lone Ranger's personality would you like to have and make your own?
I don't know. He's got a good buddy he hangs out with. That's pretty good. He's got a white horse. Everybody thinks a white horse is pretty
So all the
cool.
friends around him, but
Yeah,
not,
yeah, it's
anything,
not the actual
anything with
character,
him
yeah.
himself.
The extenuating circumstances, yeah.
Okay.
I also wish that I found a bunch of silver. That'd be nice, too.
Johnny, this is coming all the way from China. What kind of characters haven't you played, but maybe would love to someday?
Carol Channing. I mean that. She's fantastic. Carol Channing. Another guy that I would love to do the life story of is Don Rickles, which I don't know if he's well known in China, but he's a wonderful.
Here in Vegas, you got some Don Rickles fans. Yeah, there you go. Gore, this is coming from Facebook. Courtney wants to know, what was your most memorable moment filming the movie? Is there a day on set that really stands out?
Oh, God. No. There's not. There's not a
honesty.
day. There's not a day. But, you know, you sit in the edit room and you work on the movie, and every image that shows up is like a sense memory of just absolute misery and pain and torture, and nothing was going right, and the weather was horrendous. And so I'm just sitting here watching the clip. I was like, you know, it's like every shot comes up has a little bit of a history, because, you know, it's not just the movie, it's the process of making it, which is just insane. It's madness.
Out in Japan, Johnny, they want to know, Tonto calls the Lone Ranger Kimasabi. What is a Kimasabi to you?
Does it mean something in Japanese?
Yeah, careful.
Because I want to really be careful here. Well, Kimasabi, the origin of the wrong brother, wrong guy.
Okay, thank you. Let's keep it going with the question from Korea. Jerry, do you guys have plans on taking the movie to Korea or being there at all with the cast?
I think we do. I think we might be there in July, so we're excited.
I would imagine some of the challenges in this is telling a uniquely American story, but making it approachable for the entire world to enjoy. So what were some of the aspects of that you looked into while making this movie?
Well, it's all about telling a great story, populated with great characters and wonderful themes, and then you get a brilliant director and fantastic stars like I'm sitting next to, and that's the fun of it, you know, bringing this whole caravan and circus that we carried around our western, southwestern part, our northwestern part of the country, and present it to the audience and to you out there, and that's the fun, to watch you enjoy what we just spent almost a year of our life filming and editing.
In Italy, Giada wants to know, Johnny, was this the most dangerous movie you ever worked on?
Well, I have worked with Michael Mann.
So a close second, is what you're saying.
But this is definitely the most dangerous. You know, when you find yourself underneath of like I said, you know, a horse traveling at great speed, and all you see are the striations of muscle in his
You guys are close now.
enormous body, very close.
It was almost.
And all you can think about is, it was almost consummated. Very, very close. But I was more worried about the hooves than, getting into a relationship with the horse. But the horse did save my life, I must say.
Keep it moving. From Canada. Isabel has a question
And
for...
then we asked Johnny to leave.
Isabel has a question for Army. What's your favorite scene in The Lone Ranger? I enjoyed seeing you take a look at some of the footage here today, and I could see you were looking at it a little differently, obviously. It's
Yeah.
first time seeing it, I would imagine.
Yeah, this is actually my first time seeing anything in the movie, and I mean, it's exactly what Gore was saying. You watch the scene, and unfortunately, you're not able to sort of, you're not able to go with the movie. You're not able to sort of suspend your disbelief and go, oh, they're cowboys, and those are the bad guys. You're kind of going, oh, that's me, and that's how I stand. Like, that's no good. It's like listening to yourself on voicemail. So you watch it, and you remember being there. You're not looking at what's happening on the screen. You remember that day. Oh man, it was 124 degrees that day, and oh, the cameras weren't even working. It was so hot. And, oh, then we had to carry all the, and all of it. Each scene was so difficult to make because we would be shooting places where they'd go, great, we're so excited that you're shooting here. You can't have any cars. And we go, well, what do we do with all of our equipment? They go, well, I guess you'll have to carry it all. So you'd have guys carrying camera dollies, which probably weigh 1,500 pounds. Like 8 guys on this dolly carrying it over like the crest of a mountain. It's just the kind of experiences you can't get working on any other movie.
Jerry produces independent movies, so that's
Exactly.
so like an independent
Small
film.
ones, too.
Yeah, exactly. Let's go out to Russia now. Alina has a question for you guys and wants to know if you guys added something to these characters to make them your own. Obviously, you did, but was something that kind of stood out, from doing the research and seeing how they were played on radio before that you knew you wanted to maybe bring something different to each of the roles?
I mean, for me, it was important to see like I said, to give as much back to the human beings, the Native Americans, as possible, and to show that they have a fantastic sense of humor, very dry and very, so that was kind of, really for me.
And for you, Army, the Lone Ranger is such an iconic character. When you did all the research and you looked at everybody who played him before, what is something you wanted to be sure to add to it and make it your own?
I think it's the thing that was the most important for the character, which is just a semi-inflated sense of justice. The idea of, I'm going to bring law and order to this place. That was what the original Lone Ranger was all about. That's what our Lone Ranger is all about. And it's just about figuring out how you do that.
In France, Johnny, they want to know, how long did it take for you every day in the makeup chair?
Well, we got it down pretty to about an hour and a half, a couple hours.
When you slept in it?
Oh yeah, yeah. I did sleep in it a number of times, which was you really can't go into a restaurant at that point.
And it also smells exactly as it looks.
Yeah.
In Venezuela, they want to know, what was the funniest thing that happened while shooting? You guys are, across 5 states, you're on these huge sets. I would imagine there was a moment or something that just kind of changed the tone of what you guys were doing, or something that really stood out for you, Johnny. Just a funny day, maybe, that comes to mind.
Well, I got to fall off a horse at top speed. I mean, it was when you're in those situations. When you're in the trenches, when you're in the, the muck out there with everyone, and everyone's working hard, and everyone's working for the same thing, from craft services, which, all the way up. And it's like a family. I mean, so it's like it's like the circus comes to town. So every day was fun, funny, miserable at times, but we
Buried to your heads.
We were buried, yeah.
And the crew just left.
They came back the next day, though.
Yeah.
This question is coming from Facebook, and I'm going to read it as it's written on the thing. Hello, Jerry Bruckheimer. You are a great man. I want to ask you, what is your inspiration to make movies? You have your relatives on Facebook, Jerry?
Yeah, I do. Thank you.
Yeah,
I had such a good time when I was growing up in the theater, just like where you're sitting now, and watching great movies. And I wanted to bring that to the next generation and be a part of that magic that's on that big screen, and get to work with such talented people as are on this stage. And that's what I love. I love entertaining people, and that's why we make movies like The Lone Ranger.
Army, I remember interviewing you a few times for The Social Network, which was sort of your entree into this big Hollywood world now, and now you've had a few credits under your belt since then. How has that, experience over the last couple of years prepared you, you think, for this moment as the Lone Ranger?
I mean, honestly, the thing that I left Social Network with was just a sense of like, this job is really, really hard. And then, I went on to the next movie, and, you're doing 17, 18-hour days again, and you're just like, this is really hard, and I really love this, So it was just like that. I think what I walked away with from Social Network, because I had to do, kind of double shifts on it, was just, this is not an easy job, but there's not a job out there that's worth it more, worth the toil and all that. It's great. It's the same thing that Jerry said. It's like everybody goes to the theater and just has fun. You go somewhere else for a little bit.
I think we have a question here from Twitter. I don't know if it gave us who asked it, but the Lone Ranger, this is a question, I guess, for the entire cast up here. When you were younger, did you ever play dress-up as the Lone Ranger or Tonto? Say it proud, Army. You're amongst friends. It's okay.
Yeah, I did. I mean,
Which character?
Tom. Yeah. Yeah.
I played dress-up as Carol Channing.
Let's bring it home to Carol Channing. That's great.
It was Carol Burnett.
And Carol Burnett.
Gore, what novel filming or cinematography or special effects approaches did you use to this film, maybe that you hadn't used in the past, or to kind of bring it to life that audiences should look out for while they're watching the movie?
We tried to put people on trains and on horses and under horses and in the dirt, and only relied on very little blue screen. In certain places we had to, but tried to make it feel like that it occurred, and we brought a camera to these places. We were very nomadic, so I would say we were very large, but we were very lo-fi. We're just carried. You can't. It's hard to find locations that don't have, a Taco Bell or something in your shot. So, you do have to kind of climb over that mountain, and you do have to kind of go to those places, and it just doesn't. People don't act the same if they're not on top of a train at 40 miles an hour.
For the audience that's lucky enough to be here in Vegas, you guys were introduced to the character of Silver, who I would imagine plays a big role in the movie. Talk to me a little bit about Silver and his role in the film.
Silver's.
We
I only
had
touched it once.
We had a number of trainers working with Silver, and he does play a magical role in the movie. And it's something that I think audiences are going to love when they see him.
Well, unfortunately, that
hits his mark every time.
That concludes our. You can't say the same about Army, but that concludes our time here in Vegas and hanging out online with you guys watching all over the world. The film opens July 3rd. Give it up for our wonderful panel here today. Be sure to check out The Lone Ranger when it hits theaters. Thank you guys very much. Nice to see you.
That was great.